This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Lisa Olona. Lisa is a certified transformational mind and body coach with an inspiring approach to both weight loss and mindset. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
I've always been really athletic and active, and so that naturally just led me into, initially it led me into coaching. I played collegiate volleyball and basketball. And then after that, I coached at the college and high school level for a few years. Then I hit kind of a rough patch in my life, and spent a couple of years kind of rebuilding my life and deciding, which direction I wanted to go career-wise. And I, in that process, ended up putting on some weight, which as an athlete just didn't feel right for me. So I went on a weight loss journey, and that led me into helping mostly women. I have worked with some men, but mostly women, to drop weight, get back into shape. And it started out just kind of as personal training. But I always had a vision for boot camps, for like more of a group setting. And this was probably 20 years ago, before boot camps were really a known thing, but just because of the camaraderie, the team aspect, and having come from, so many teams and stuff, I really had this vision for working with women in a group setting. So I went on to do that, and that just kind of blew up. It expanded, and that's what I've been doing for the last 16 years. And then with that, I noticed that a lot of these women were very busy professionals. They were taking care of families and spouses and things like that, and starting to neglect themselves. So then I've developed a new vision, which was to create some retreats that would help the women get out of their atmosphere for a little while, just focus on themselves. Because what I noticed is when they were, even though they were carving out that time in the morning for, their workout, which was wonderful, they were losing sight of their goals and stuff like that, or they'd hit their goals and they'd hit some struggles. And so I thought, okay, maybe if we focus more on mindset and, and take them out of their element for a while, let them relax, let them focus on, okay, sometimes we get an autopilot, I guess. And so I wanted them to kind of regroup and see what their vision was. And then that's from that point, where I was inspired to write a book about mindset and steps in overcoming those obstacles that will pop up anytime you go to create any kind of change, whether it's your health and fitness, a career, anytime you approach change, there's obstacles that are going to pop up. And that's where I chose to write a book on overcoming those obstacles. It's mostly fitness, health and fitness related, but it can be applied to anything. So that's where I am today. Is I have an online fitness academy, so it's all virtual, and I'm fully accessible to the people, my clients that I work with. So it's kind of like having a trainer in your back pocket. And I have the book to help with mindset, overcoming obstacles, things like that. And I've already done 3 retreats, but I'm building on that as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think the kind of retreat getaway in business, oftentimes mastermind kind of meetings, I think it's important to take yourself out of that element because, like you said, I think people are habit forming a lot of the time, negative versus positive. So unless you take them out of kind of their everyday environment and surround them with like-minded people with similar visions and looking to get to kind of the same goal or the same kind of moving destination. I think without that, it's hard, being with life. A lot of things that happen in life right now, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. And, it creates a mental kind of block, or, it gets you down. And like you said, that mindset component is very important as well, because I think that's the primary hurdle for anyone able to do something, whether it's lose weight, switch careers, work on a relationship. I think that mindset is that primary hurdle that a lot of people can't overcome.
Absolutely. And that's the foundation of it, because, like I said, anytime we pursue change, we will hit resistance. So if you're not expecting that or anticipating that, and have kind of like a game plan to overcome it, then typically what happens is your old self, the habit, like you were talking about, the habit forming, you're in that habit, it pulls you back. When you're trying to become this newer version of yourself, it's easier to go back, because our brains like comfort. They don't like change. They are made to protect us from any kind of threat, and a change can be seen as a threat. So if we don't have that perspective, and we don't fully understand, why do I keep dropping 10 pounds and then I put it back on? And, every time I start getting to my goal, I turn around and I stop, I turn around and go back. And which was really interesting, because when we were at our last retreat, that's where the title of my book, Cross Your Creek, came up. It just kind of happened. We showed up for a hike, and we didn't know that there was this creek that we were going to have to figure out our way across to get to the trail. And we weren't even sure if the trail was on the other side, but that brought up all kinds of mindset issues, all kinds of thought processes that we operate from. And there was a lot of frustration, all those emotions that come with when a creek pops up. How do you overcome that? So that was actually the inspiration behind the book. And when we have that resistance come up in our lives, or the creeks pop up in our lives, what steps do we take to keep pushing through and overcome it? Instead of just saying, oh, forget it, I'm not going to go for this hike, this beautiful hike, and get this. I mean, we're in Sedona, Arizona. You can't get any prettier than that. But I'm not going to go on this hike because now there's a creek in the way. It's much more rewarding to find your way across the creek and enjoy that view.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's obviously taking yourself out of that comfort zone that your mind and body wants to stay in. And I think in business and in life, it's important to do that, or you have to force yourself to do that with obviously certain things in terms of positive habits being formed, different things to kind of train yourself in terms of your mind to stay positive, because I think that habit usually is not necessarily negative, but just kind of complacent. And I think complacency is like the death of innovation, whether it's in business or things like it keeps you from getting fit or getting in shape. So I think motivation is tied with that as well, because you often see people, different quote unquote gurus and people leading in their industries talking about motivation, and on paper and on social media, it looks like they're motivated all the time. But I think everyone struggles with motivation and how they're motivated and what motivates them. Obviously, it's different from person to person.
Absolutely. And the motivation is just not always going to be there. So it's how do you, show up for yourself? And like you're talking about with starting a business or doing any kind of a business, you're going to have those hard days where you're wondering, why did I do this? What am I doing here? Because there's so many like ups and downs with running a business. But the motivation, like you're saying, it's just not always going to be there. And so you've got to show up even on the days that it's not there.
Yeah, and it's also obviously harnessing your fear, like you said, with the creek. I personally am afraid of heights, but got convinced, I believe 8 or 9 years ago, to go skydiving. I'm still afraid of heights, but I wouldn't change that experience for anything, because this is one of the best kind of feelings in terms of perspective on the world and you as an individual. And although I still hate flying and things of that nature, I got to experience that and kind of get myself out of my comfort zone.
Yes. And that's living right there. That's what it's all about.
Yep. And I think it's important, like you said, overall mindset is trying the things that are kind of scary, because usually those scary things lead to, positive experiences, obviously sometimes negative, But, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, you're not going to regret trying it. You're going to regret, what if I did that, or what if I took that chance or that leap or that career pivot?
Absolutely. Yes. And, sometimes we get so frozen trying to figure out all the steps that are ahead of us and anticipate all of those. And what it does is it freezes us. And as we move across our creek and we move through that resistance, all we're going to end up doing is getting stronger in that. It can get a little bit scarier as you go, but the big thing is taking that action, taking that first step, even when you don't know what the end result's going to be or the next step's going to be. And that's where you get, as you're moving through it, you get the answers kind of start to reveal themselves, and you get stronger and stronger through it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like self-assurance, or reassuring yourself that fear, what paralyzes you, leads to that comfort. So you're like scared to take that first step. But if you never do, you're never going to accomplish anything in your personal life or business if you don't put yourself in a position of being uncomfortable.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely.
So what motivates you to succeed?
Oh, I like challenges. I always have. But I am inspired it's really inspiring, motivating to me to see other people have these breakthroughs, and to recognize their true potential and what they really have in them. And when you get that breakthrough moment, I think that's what just keeps me going, and wanting to help more and more people, because that's where, like I said, that's where living really starts, and like you're saying, is getting out of that comfort zone and challenging yourself. It's exciting to see that. For instance, I have a client that came to me 14 years ago, and she did not work out a day in her life. And she was so unhealthy. She could barely walk a lap around the park on her first day. And fast forward I think it's about 8 to 10 years later, she's out traveling the world, hiking these incredible mountains. I mean, she's hiked Machu Picchu. She's been in Paris hiking, like just these unreal mountains, which she never would have done if she hadn't taken that first step and, showed up to work out and then continued to show up, because it couldn't have been fun for her to be the last person, walk in the park and to barely be able to make it. But every single day she continued to show up. And eventually that led to her just living her best life. And she's healthy. She got off her medications and she eats healthy, all those things. So that kind of a story is what motivates me.
Yeah. And I think it's important, obviously, for people to find what they love doing. So obviously a lot of people in the world are doing things because they have to provide for their family and themselves, but they're not necessarily, passionate about it. So incorporating some kind of passion, and like you said, you're directly helping people and changing people's lives and the way they think and the way they live their lives. So I think in that sense, you're living that life yourself in terms of fitness, and you're seeing these kind of everyday changes happening, which is that much more rewarding. Yes.
That's exactly it.
So what's one thing you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
I think just holding back, just fear. I just holding back and questioning myself. I didn't always just listen to my heart and trust it and follow it. And I started to, probably over the last few years, really started to make that shift to where, and it's become more of a strength now. So it's kind of more of a nothing can stop me mentality. So if there's, a goal or something that I want to achieve, and if it's in there, if it's in my head, if it's in my heart, then I now go all out instead of hesitating.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of relentless pursuit. And oftentimes I say it's kind of a you versus you battle. So your biggest kind of hurdle is yourself. And I think in business and personal life is not looking for validation or kind of a cosign. So if you want to do something, don't wait for doors to be open for you. Kind of create your own doors and, do it yourself, whether it's something creative, a career pivot, building a relationship, mending a relationship, it's ultimately on you to kind of take that first step.
Yes, that's absolutely it right there.
So what's one piece of advice you can leave with the audience, personal or professional?
Is when you have something, a desire, a goal that you want to achieve, a dream, there's a reason why that desire is in your heart. And I believe that stems from what you were created to do. So when you have that desire, grab onto it and start taking the steps, whether they're just baby steps or big gigantic steps, but start taking the steps to pursue that. And understand that as you're taking those steps, there will be really challenging days. And there will be days where you feel like maybe this wasn't what I was supposed to do. But if that desire is in your heart, it is what you're supposed to do. So my advice would be, and my hope would be, to encourage people to really hone in on that desire and let that be their fuel, to pursue their dreams.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people that undertake something, they oftentimes kind of don't have a forward-looking vision where it's kind of they stay in their lane and do everything they can for that success. Oftentimes we look at other people, look at social media, sometimes in our careers or personal lives, and then compare ourselves, which kind of limits ourselves where, why is this person so much further than me in the same thing I'm doing when I'm doing all these things behind the scenes? And I think that staying kind of in your lane and focusing on doing everything you can do to achieve that is important. And I think that's also crippling at times, just that looking at other people, seeing that lens of social media and just comparing ourselves to other people's situations and lives.
I love that. That's so true. Like they say that the comparison is the thief of joy, and that when you see that picture of the glacier and how deep it is in the water, and then what we just see above the water, to show like everything that goes on behind the scenes. And there's just, social media, like you said, just shows you the surface level. You don't know what's gone on behind it all. So staying in your lane is absolutely imperative.
Yeah, and in 2020, and with the short attention spans of people were looking for instant gratification, whether it's to get fit, to make a lot of money, if that's your goal, to, have a great relationship with someone, friend, loved one, what have you. And I think nobody sees kind of that behind the scenes, all that kind of blood, sweat, and tears that actually go into achieving something. And maybe it's taken 10 years for someone, but you don't know that, or you don't see that.
Absolutely. And, everyone's journey is different. Everyone has their own unique journey.
I agree. So what's one piece of advice you can leave with the audience, personal or professional?
Just that, with the desire, when you have that desire in your heart, to pursue that with everything you have, and know that there's going to be awesome days. It'd be like a roller coaster, and there's going to be challenging days, but to continue to pursue that desire that's in your heart.
I agree, and kind of be ready for both. So obviously take advantage of the good when they are good, but know that, stormier or darker days may come, because I think whenever you're having a great personal life and maybe struggling with something with business, or vice versa, awesome business, or maybe both are aligned at that moment. I mean, my 2019 was like that. I had several deaths in the family, different, personal things that happened. My dog got cancer. But, from the professional sense, it was awesome. But it's one of those things, how do you maintain, get past it, and learn from that and apply it to the things and the challenges that you will undergo in the future?
And just understanding that that's, a part of your journey, and it's those days that are just making you stronger as you go through your journey.
Yeah, I agree. Stronger for the next thing, because if you're not equipped to handle it, I mean, you may fold, you may quit, and you may just give up. But if you've experienced all these things throughout your life, they're building blocks for greater things to come.
Yes, they all serve a purpose. Absolutely.
I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Probably the best way, I have a website, and it's lisaolona.com. So that's just LISAOLONA.com. And my book, Cross Your Creek, is on Amazon. That could be another way.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.